It wasn't until I actually truly started to learn to think in terms of frequencies that my life actually really started to shift. And like what I didn't realize I was doing for so long was telling like kind of the old story, right? The narrative of what my life had been rather than what my life will be or is in the future going forward. I didn't really understand the impact, I guess, of language and how language effectively perpetuates a frequency into time. And that is something that I don't know that is widely discussed in our society, because frankly, like I think what I've learned is we have a sort of hyper focus on the past, on what has happened, on rehashing the past, on discussing our problems, all that kind of stuff. And so once I learned to start to think and act and speak in terms of frequencies, that is when my life totally did a 180, and all of the problems of my past no longer were showing up in my future. But I had this habit of talking about my problems before that. So speaking about frequencies, speaking about like consciousness, all of that, I've been researching this for like the last 6 years. And I've been talking to and interviewing a lot of the kind of the pioneers in the consciousness research field who are trying to understand what our reality is and how we exist in our reality, right? Which is like a big thing to try to figure out. And I've been doing this because I struggled for so many years with deep anxiety, waking up crying, depression. I was on antidepressants for 10 years. I dropped out of college. I grew up with a really wonderful family, but like a lot of chaos, which is like a typical, I'm not unique in that. My stepmom was severely bipolar. My mom was probably the best mom in the entire world. She and I were like best friends, very close. So I was very fortunate in that regard, but she ended up passing away later in my life when I was like, late 20s, I think, and from alcoholism. And, there was just like a lot of emotional stuff going on. Even right now, like I could go and rehash all the things in my life. It's like a little bit redundant, right? Of all the reasons in my life that I was led to feel anxious and sad and depressed. I had anxious relationships with friends. I had drama, but even me like bringing this up and talking about this like story in my life is kind of an example, I think, of how I think most of my life went and how I was bringing back those problems to recirculate in my life and then repeat themselves. So, oh my God, that is a giant bug. Did you see that? That was crazy. He just wanted to get a little airtime. So right there, right? That's such a good snap into the next segment of this. I had to learn to stop talking about my problems and the things that were going on in my life that didn't make me feel good. So in talking with these researchers in consciousness and quantum physics, and then also doing my own work over the last 6 years, I have actively and purposefully chosen to change my baseline frequency to raise it higher. And this is a day-to-day practice that I do every single day by choosing the thoughts that I think about and actively choosing the things that I talk about. So I used to live in this habit state of just constantly rehashing my problems, talking to my friends about them, talking to my friends about the things that were going wrong, trying to find a solution, thinking about it, trying to solve the problem. And what that did was it put me in a mind state of not only like because I was thinking about my problems, as a direct result of thinking about them, talking about them, I was releasing the chemicals in my body that would essentially create an emotional state equal to as if that problem was present day. And what that does in our lives, talking from frequencies, if we could think about frequencies as just like, we're surrounded by frequencies all the time, but I was taking a frequency that was on a negative emotion, let's say on the emotional scale, and I was perpetuating it with my language, with my thoughts, with my whatever. Because as you might hear, I used to hear Joe Dispenza say this and I didn't really get it, but because I was actually addicted to that old identity and to that thoughts, because I didn't realize, but there was like an emotional addiction to those feelings. I was like stuck in a loop of talking about them. Once I learned to basically shut up about my problems and choose to talk about something else, even in the moments when it was like, okay, I could talk about this. I could, go into the story about why this happened and why I'm this way and this and that. Like, once I learned that it doesn't actually matter anymore, and that I had a choice to either talk about that, which would rehearse the old frequency, which would then release the old emotions in my body, which would then release the old chemicals and would create that cycle. I could do that, or I could just let that die and start talking about the things that I love in my life, the things that I'm happy about, the things that I'm grateful for, the things that make me feel good to think about. When I started doing that, that is truly when my life actually began to shift. And as a result, I say this really humbly because I don't ever like coming on and like being like, oh, this is what I got. Like, it was just a dramatic shift. I left the company that I was at, which I did love working there, but I was underpaid because it was, it was a startup. That's not anybody's fault. But I was hired at a company that paid me well into the six figures, more money than I ever thought I would ever make at, the age of 29 in my life, well into the six figures. They actually paid for me $10,000 to move to a new city, the city that I wanted to go to. Didn't have enough money to go to. I get to the city and I meet immediately, the first week I get there, one of my best friends, who is to this day one of my best friends. I'm so lucky to have him. 6 months later, I meet another one of my best friends, so lucky to have her. And another one, all these friends just come into my life, this community of people that I've met and I'm close with now are like the people that I always dreamed of having and like always wanted to have. And then all of the like weird relationship drama back my old town cleared up. I had no anxiety, no depression, YouTube channel, different revenue streams of income. The apartment that I wanted just happened to open up the week that I was looking. It initially wasn't available, and then I got a call 2 days later after I was looking there at this dream apartment, and they were like, oh, this one room, this person's actually moving out tomorrow. Do you want to come check it out? So what I'm saying is, if we're talking and thinking in terms of frequencies, what I have learned is that there is a rather than trying to force things to happen in my life to manifest things and whatever, I think that's a little bit contrived. What it actually is I had to learn how to look at and see and recognize and talk about and think about all the things that are going well in my life, all the things that I'm grateful for, all of the good things that I have in my life every single day. Oh my God, these bugs are coming for me. I don't blame them. It's clearly I'm also around plants. There's so many bees in front of me, which I love, but bees are my favorite animal. But I learned that speaking about, thinking about, talking about the story that I want to be true perpetuates that frequency of the emotions that story brings about within me into the future. And by letting the old things that sucked to think about, that sucked to talk about, that sucked to feel die, literally letting it die, I had cleared the space for my life to pre-pave that reality. And again, going back to where I have learned so much is, we hear about so much in different languages: Islam, Judaism, Christianity, appreciation, gratitude, love, all that stuff is like the answer, the key. We talk in the context of God, whatever one's God is, it's always, that's the language that God understands, that's kind of the way to speak to God. When I started to actively write down and think about and speak of all of the things that I was grateful for, all the things that were happening in my life, rather than hyper focusing on all the bad things, like I was saying, the old stories, why I don't have this, why this exists, why I have a setback in life, whatever the story was that I had, I shifted my emotional state over time to lack, to regret, to anxiety, to the what ifs, as I used to be called by my ex-boyfriend, to the I have this, I'm grateful for this, to I feel appreciation for this small little thing that happened yesterday, to starting to see all the little ways that God does have my back. I do believe in God, and I do believe in the universe, energy, whatever that is, but by becoming more aware of how I was speaking, how I was talking, how I was thinking, and perpetuating the gratitude for my life, the little things that happened, that became what my actual field around me, the energy of my field, what it started to resonate. Sorry, this little necklace is wanting to click into the microphone. But you see, I have a microphone for some of you that were saying, stop using your headphones. Sometimes I'm not always preparing to, talk, and then anyways, I use my headphones. But there is a language to God, to the universe, that I've come to realize that I wasn't talking in. I was only noticing all the bad things in my life. I wasn't noticing, for example, yesterday. I woke up yesterday late. I had a meeting at 7:30 in the morning, and I was supposed to wake up at 6. I woke up at 7:15. My alarm didn't go off, and I still woke up at 7:15, meaning I didn't miss the meeting. I got to do the meeting, that was great. And then I was tired, I was like, oh gosh. And I drink a little bit of coffee every day, and because I love coffee, I do. That's my only vice. That's the one thing that I'll have a little bit of. And so I'm like, okay, I'm kind of waking up in the day. Usually I have a couple hours before I start meetings, I'm tired. So I go down to this place to go get coffee, and I'm like, oh, I don't want to pay for this coffee, because I was going to go to this other place to work and get coffee there. Freaking out of nowhere, their power went out right as I got there. And then the lady's like, hey, I'll give it to you on the house if you can wait 5 minutes. I'm like, okay, great. Thank you for doing that. She brings the coffee over to me 2 minutes later and was like, oh, it wasn't as bad as I thought, but here it is on the house. So I got a free coffee. I'm like, wow, okay. So then I go back up, I work on my, I make breakfast, I have bacon and eggs, I eat carnivore, I have a great breakfast, it's so good. And then I get to the coffee shop that I'm gonna go work at, that I usually work at, and it's so busy, but the one seat that I always want that has the outlets, because we know how important outlets are when you're working, the one seat that I want opens up as I get there. It's okay. And then I just spend the next, 7 hours working at this place, and it's beautiful. The environment's beautiful. I have an amazing conversation with people. I get text messages from friends who want to hang out. Even though I'm busy, it's wow, I have friends that are actually wanting to hang out with me and spend time with me and, be with me. And even though the timing wasn't lining up, I used to go through my life and not recognize all these little things in my life that were coming to me, that were good things, that were helping me, because I had an obsession with speaking about, talking about, thinking about all the negative things in my life, the old story. And this goes back to the frequencies. What we talk about, think about, use our language on, it's perpetuated into reality. And as a direct result, because that releases these emotions and these chemicals legitimately in the body, as if they're happening right now, because I was talking about them, that was my energetic field around me, which is a real thing. I know that sounds crazy to anybody who hasn't heard about this stuff, but it's an actual field around me that was created from my language, what I was thinking about, what I was talking about, what I was feeling. So as a result of that, I wasn't attracting or bringing in all of these amazing experiences. And even if I did here or there, I wasn't in an emotional state to be able to see them and acknowledge them and be like, wow, that happened. As I learned to think in terms of frequencies and actually enhance the emotional state of feeling gratitude and love and appreciation and acknowledging all the just like the little ways that God and the universe and whatever was looking out for me, that's when I started to see more of it, all the little ways. Like no one had to give me a free coffee. You know, I could have just slept through my alarm and missed the meeting. I could have just not had an outlet to work at that coffee shop and then I would have to find another place. But I didn't. All of those things worked for me to make my day work. And because I was in an energetic field and practicing the frequency, which is frequency and emotion can kind of be a similar thing. Because I was practicing that, I was able to actually perceive of that in my life. And it's kind of this self-fulfilling thing that once I started to do that on purpose, then I started to see more things that were coming to me. And then because I was seeing those things, I was feeling more gratitude, more love. And then that creates the emotional state, that creates the chemicals in one's body, and that then releases in my body. That becomes my state of being. And then that becomes my aura around me, my energy field around me. And that's then what pulls in other experiences equal to that field. So learning to just shut up and stop talking about my past and the reasons why I was whatever, bad, sad, this wasn't happening. And there is a time and a place I do think there's like a thing called toxic positivity where you never express your emotions. They stayed buried and like you never give them a chance to be seen and exposed and heard and all that. But post doing that, like I'd done that. Some of the things I was talking about in my life were like 10 years ago. 20 years ago, that I had certainly acknowledged, moved through, talked about in therapy, all that kind of stuff. And now it was just a habit of talking about it. So, the way I learned to do this was really by accident. I started to write in terms of frequencies, think in terms of frequencies, and do this through what I call, by accident, was never supposed to be public. It's called the Magic Book. If you've heard me talk before, I talk about this a lot because this is the one thing I truly know has changed my life and helped me to think and believe and talk and act in terms of frequencies, which it's literally like given me everything in my life that I've always dreamed of: the friends, the wealth, the family, the podcast, the love, the health, no anxiety, no depression, none of that. And it's through learning to think and act and talk in terms of frequencies, which is what I started to do in what I call the Magic Book. And the Magic Book is a way for me to, it's our focus, it's our attention that matters the most. What we focus on, what we talk about, what we bring into right now reality perpetuates as a frequency into the ether. We're surrounded, this whole like world, it's crazy. I'm just like, here's the moon, it's beautiful. And then look at this like sunrise. This is insane. Like, let me get my head out of the way. But like everything here, we are surrounded by literal billions, trillions, we don't know how many frequencies. Perpetuating a frequency is a choice. And I had to learn to make the choice that would create the reality I want, not the reality I had been experiencing. So anyways, if you're curious about learning how, a little bit more about the Magic Book and how I do this, comment the word Magic Book below, and I'll probably be hosting a live webinar to talk about a little bit of this. And obviously, if you've had a similar experience, just drop that below as well, your story, how you can relate, if anything. But I'm gonna go now. I'm gonna go on to the day. And just thinking and acting and talking in terms of the frequency that I want right now to perpetuate. So, okay, I hope this helps. And I'll see you on the next one. See ya.